Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Z Explains. I've been working in banking for several years, so in today's video, I am simplifying everyday banking so you don't bank around and find out. In today's video, I'm going to discuss transactions. But before I get started, please keep in mind, I am not your financial advisor, and this video is for general educational purposes only. Be sure to contact your institution for their policies or review your account agreement for details that apply to you. In banking, there's many transaction types that you can do. Some of the most common ones that you might know about or you've done yourself are wire transactions, ATM transactions, credit card purchases. There's external or electronic transfers, like sending money from your bank to someone else at another bank. Those are also called ACH. There's also Zelles. There's so many more transaction types, but the ones that we're going to discuss is debit card transactions. It's one of the most common transaction types in banking, but not everyone understands how debit cards work. So I picked 5 of the most common topics talked about regarding debit card transactions. First, I'll explain how debit card transactions work. People tend to think that their bank didn't pay a transaction or their bank didn't process this charge on their card, but that's not necessarily how transactions work. So I'm going to use an analogy to help simplify how transactions work on a debit card. So consider your bank a basket, and in that basket is your money only. So when a company goes to charge you for a transaction, they dip their hand in the basket, they grab the amount for the transaction, and then eventually they pull their money out. That's how the transaction works. So the merchant, also known as the companies and the people you're doing business with, in banking we call them merchants. The merchant tends to initiate and process the transaction. So if you don't see a charge processing on your account, that's because the company you're doing business with hasn't initiated or processed the transaction. Banks don't push out money. They don't send money to people. They release the funds. But in order for the funds to be released, the company you're doing business with has to request the money from your account using your debit card. With that being said, now we're going to discuss what a processing and a pending transaction is as opposed to a posted transaction. Processing and pending means literally the same thing. It's in the process. So we're going to return back to our bucket transaction or basket transaction that we mentioned earlier in the video. So when the merchant dips their hand in your basket for the money, when they hold on to those funds, that is what initiates the processing or the pending of the transaction. So they are in the middle of taking the funds out of the account, but that doesn't necessarily mean the transaction is posted or it's final. They're just processing the transaction. It means it's in the process, it's not yet completed. The money is likely already put to the side and taken out of your available balance, but the transaction's not final. Some transactions are finalized immediately and posted, but not all of them. A posted transaction means it's no longer processing, it's done pending, it's a completed transaction. That means the merchant's already taken their hand out of the bucket, they already have their money, they're gone. Now, with that being said, transactions process for different time frames. Some transactions post immediately. Some of them process for 1 to 3 business days. Most transactions process within that time frame, but sometimes they can go longer. But eventually, if the transaction doesn't post within a certain time frame, the transaction will fall off, meaning you didn't ultimately get charged for the transaction. While we're on the topic of processing transactions, keep in mind, transactions can post for a different amount than what it was processing for. So these are common scenarios in like hotels, car rental transactions, gas stations. So like if you go to a gas station and you use the pump, you insert the card or tap the card, the pump doesn't know how much money you're going to use in gas. So the pump will then communicate with your bank and say, let's see if this person has at least $75 on this debit card. And the bank goes, okay. And then the gas station will then hold a certain amount, which is that $75 or whatever amount I said. And then let's say you only use $50 in gas. Then the gas station will communicate with your bank, okay, we were holding 75, but she only used 50, we're just gonna charge the 50. And then it was only processing for 75, but it posted for 50. Another common scenario is restaurants. You go to a restaurant, the bill is $100, you leave a $25 tip. I do not want to see several comments about tips. This is not what this video is about, but you leave a $25 tip. So it was processing for $100 because you knew you were at least going to be charged $100, but the tip had not been added. So the tip sometimes isn't added until later. It could be a 1 business day later, 3 business days later. So even though the restaurant was processing the transaction for $100, when it posted for $125. So keep in mind, even though a transaction is processing for one amount, it could post for a different amount. The cool thing about debit card transactions, which a lot of other types of transaction types don't really do, is debit card transactions usually display in your mobile app if you use it, or your online banking if you use it in real time. Usually for debit card transactions, they already show in your app at the time the transaction is approved. So just keep in mind to monitor your accounts. This is your money. If the bank has a wonderful feature, such as a mobile app, where you can use your face or your fingerprint to log into your account and see your transactions in real time, to see where your money is going in that very minute, then utilize it. Monitor your accounts to see what is being charged to your debit card. Most common topic discussed about debit card transactions are debit card declines. Now, not having enough money in an account is one of the least reasons why a debit card declines, but it's the first thing people tend to think about when their card declines. So I'm going to give you some of the reasons to help ease your mind and build your confidence if you just so happen to experience a debit card decline, because it's just a part of life. So keep in mind that debit card transactions is still an electronic type of transaction. It's a piece of plastic that has a little chip on it if you have one, and it's inserted into a card reader that then magically communicates with your bank that they're taking X amount of dollars from your account, and your bank approves the transaction. That's a lot going on that fast. We're talking about seconds for this transaction to be approved or denied. So the most common reason transactions fail is simply because of electronics. It's because of technology. It's because of the card reader. Lots of times banks do not even get the communication from the merchant that you are transacting. So remember I said that, going back to our bucket analogy or our basket analogy, that in order for a transaction to be processed or initiated, the merchant has to put their hand in your basket that's holding all this money, because the bank is the basket, and when they put their hand in the bucket or the basket, that is what alerts the bank that you're transacting. But if their hand never even got in the bucket or the basket, the bank has no idea that you are processing a transaction. They have to get the notification. And lots of times, banks simply didn't get the notification. So when this happens, I love, if a card reader tells me my transaction declined and I know I have money in the account, the first thing I do is I check my app. I open it because it takes 2 seconds for the system to read my face, and I look at my transaction at that time to see, is the transaction processing? Because what if the merchant says, oh, your transaction decline because the card reader said that it did. But then later you go home and realize, because you tried the transaction again and it did go through, that now you have 2 transactions processing for 1 transaction. Now you have a whole nother process to go through. So my recommendation when a transaction declines is to check your app, if you have it, to see, did the transaction really decline? Another most common reason why transactions fail is very similar to the one that we just discussed, which is that the payment processing portal that you're using is down. That has something to do with them sending over the communication to your bank and the bank getting the communication that you're transacting. So these are online transactions, these are in-person transactions, it really doesn't matter. If their system is not communicating to the bank that you're transacting, the bank isn't even given the opportunity to approve or deny the transaction. Now, speaking on denials, another common reason why transactions fail is because even though your bank is used in an analogy as a bucket, there's still measures set in place to detect fraudulent transactions. So your bank itself might decline a transaction thinking that this might be a fraudulent transaction. If the bank detects fraud, the bank themselves could decline the transaction because it's trying to protect your money. Usually when that happens, the bank might call you or text you or try to notify you, or you simply might just get a decline. But it might have nothing to do with not having enough money in the account. The bank is simply protecting your account. Lastly, the most reason why transactions decline is because of PIN. User error, believe it or not. A lot of people don't realize they're using the wrong PIN. They'll say, I'm using the right PIN, I'm typing in the right PIN, but they're not. The system will tell you if you're using the right PIN or not. So just know what your PIN is, have it written down or stored somewhere safely, such as your memory, and ensure that you're looking at the keypad, because not all keypads are the same. Sometimes the one is at the bottom, sometimes it's at the top. So you want to make sure you're looking at the keypad to ensure you're typing in the exact numbers that you intend to. Now, before I finish this video, I want to finish with one more FYI that you will find helpful. This is mostly for online transactions because electronics is the most common reason why transactions fail. So that's when you're processing a transaction using your debit card, and whatever website you're on, it'll say something like a transaction cannot be processed, or please call your bank, or unable to submit, or something other than successful, processed, done. Then what I would encourage that you do, remember to check your app first to make sure it did not go through. Then try the transaction differently than how you're processing it. So if you're using that company's app, go to their website. If you're using their website, go to their app. If you're using your cell phone, try it on your laptop. If you're using your tablet, try it on your phone. So sometimes by simply changing the device, changing the browser, doing something different, using a different portal, that usually will help whatever their payment processing system is to send the information over to your bank to let your bank know, hey, we're trying to charge this person X amount of dollars. And the bank will go, okay. So those are some quick tips and tricks to help you when a transaction is processing if you do not want to call your bank, to try something different first. Now, if all else fails, then call your bank. Make sure you haven't received any text messages where the bank is asking you to confirm a transaction. Make sure you haven't received any emails. Make sure you've checked your app to ensure it's not processing. If you've done everything in your power to try to process this transaction and you just cannot figure out why it hasn't gone through, then contact your bank. They might be blocking it and you probably just unfortunately haven't been notified, but at least they can look and see why it hasn't been approved. Now, usually if a transaction declines, you can contact your bank and they can see why it declined as long as it's within so many days of you contacting them. If it's a transaction from a month ago, probably not. So it needs to be common, it needs to be more recent, like within the last week or two, but remember, contact your institution to inquire about how far back vacancy declined transactions. I definitely want to thank you guys for staying with me to the end of this video. If you'd like to see more content like this in the future, please like, comment, and subscribe. Send this video to someone that you think might find this information helpful. Until next time, I hope to see you before your next pending transaction.